Good morning, fifth grade. All right, so before we start, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who did videos for the teacher appreciation video. It was super sweet and it meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to the other teachers also. And a brow, I really want a copy of that picture. That was awesome. All right, so today we are working backwards. What am I talking about? Well, we're doing a problem solving strategy and it is about working backwards. Okay, so starting at the end and working your way back. Sometimes that's the easiest way to figure out a problem is by starting at the end and working backwards. Kind of simply like when you say 15 divided by 3 equals what? Well, you could start at the end and say what times 3 equals 15, and it's a lot easier to figure it out. So we are on page 484 in your book, and it says problem solving strategy on the top. It says, how do you work backward to solve a problem? Here's the problem that we're going to try. Tunnel vision. It took workers 5 weeks to dig a 10-mile tunnel. How much had the workers completed after 3 weeks of digging? Okay, so how would you figure that out? Okay, if it took 5 weeks and they want to know how much they had finished in 3.5 weeks or 3 weeks, well, we have to figure out how much they did each week. Okay, so we're going to work backwards. Okay, during the 4th week, the workers dug 2.5 miles. The next week, the workers dug 1 1/4 miles to complete the tunnel. Okay, so what do you know? We're reading and understanding. What do you know? The workers completed a 10-mile tunnel in 5 weeks. During week 4, they dug 2.5 miles. During week 5, they dug 1 1/4 miles. Okay, so if we know what they did in week 4, and we know what they did in week 5, and we know the total then of the miles, then we can subtract and figure that out, how much they had done after week 3, right? All right, so what strategy will you use working backwards? The number of miles they dug in the first 3 weeks is not known. Okay, but the total is, and what they did in 4 and 5 is. So identify the unknown initial amount. Okay, so then you can draw a picture. You don't have to draw a picture. You could just do this using subtraction. Okay, but you can also draw a picture. So we have 0 miles to 10 miles. And if we're working backwards in the 4th week, okay, so we know that this is 10 miles total. In the 5th week, it was 1 1/4 miles, okay? In the 4th week, so that's the 5th week. In the 4th week, 2.5 miles. Okay, so we need to figure out from 0, from 1 to 3. Okay, so if we have 10, take away 1 1/4, what is that? Okay, 10 take away 1 1/4 would be 8 3/4. Take away 2.5 would be 6 1/4, right? No, 5 1/4. Okay, so we know that 6 1/4, sorry. I was right the first time. Always go with your first answer. Okay, so between weeks 1 and 3, they dug 6 1/4 miles. All right, so let's look back and check. Yes, is your answer reasonable? Yes, because when I work forward from the initial amount of 6 1/4, I get the end result. So 6 1/4 plus 2 1/2 plus 1 1/4 equals 10. All right, so if you work backwards and then you want to check it, you can work forwards to make sure that you got the right answer, okay? So let's turn to page 485 and talk about it. Why do you subtract to solve the problem when the distance increased? Because we're working backwards. How would the solution to the problem change if a landslide filled in 3/4 miles of the distance dug in week 4? How would you do that? Well, when solving the problem, you would have to add the distance decreased by the landslide. The miles dug the first 3 weeks would then be 7 miles, okay? So you would just have to add that landslide if you ended up losing some of what you did. All right, so for today, you are going to do 486, but this time we're not doing odd, we're doing numbers 2 through 5 because I want you to do the whole problem, okay? So look at on the top of page 486, pages A, 2 through 5. So 486A, numbers 2 through 5, because I want you to do the whole problem. That is for today, Tuesday. All right, so what about tomorrow? Or later this afternoon, however you do it. We are going to move to page 490, okay? Multiplying fractions by whole numbers. I love multiplying fractions. I hope you love multiplying fractions after you figure out how to do it, okay? So, multiplying fractions by whole numbers. So, let's look at the activity, and then I'll just teach you how to do it. How can you use counters to find a fraction of a whole number? Okay, so counters are anything that you have, any objects, you can draw them, you can take them. I always have crayons here on my table. So let's say I have 12 crayons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That would have been amazing if I picked up 12, but I had 13. Okay, so I have 12 crayons here. And I need to find 1/3 of 12, 1/3 times 12. Okay, anytime you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you can say the word of instead of times. So if I have 1/3 of 12, I'm going to say 1/3 of 12, okay? So I need to break 12 into 3 groups and find out what 1/3 of that group is. So 1 out of 3 groups, all right? So if I have 12 into 3 groups, I'm going to have 3 groups of 4, okay? So what would one of those groups be? 4, okay? So 1/3 of 12 equals 4, okay? You can also divide the whole number by the denominator if there's only a 1 on the top, okay? So that's the easy way to do it, by counters. But the other way to do it, which is the way that you need to know how to do it because the fractions are not always so easy, is you take 1/3 times 12 and you put it over 1, okay? And then you multiply the top and you multiply the bottom. So 1 times 12, 12. 3 times 1, 3. Well, now we have an improper fraction, so we need to make that into a mixed number or a whole number. So what is 12 divided by 3? 4. Okay, so 1/3 of 12 is 4. Either way, okay? You can either take the whole number, if the numerator is a 1, take the whole number divided by 3, okay? And you'll get the answer. Or you can use counters, divide it into 3 groups and take one of the group, 1 out of the 3 groups, okay? Or you can just multiply it. 1/3 times 12 over 1. You put the whole number over 1, okay? And then you multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then divide the numerator by the denominator, okay? And you'll get the same answer.
Also, 2 plus 2 is 4. I love you. Have a good day.
Good thing you don't have to know big math to be a police officer. Although actually you do. He's great at math. All right.
Big speeding tickets.
Yes, speeding tickets. All right. So, for your homework for tomorrow, Wednesday, or later this afternoon, you're going to be doing 492A odd, 492A odd, $492A odd. That's for tomorrow. So let's do a few. Look on page 490. Let's do letter G, okay? So you can either use counters for this, or you can divide the whole number by the denominator, like I told you to, okay? On the ones that have 1 on the top, okay? If not, then you can multiply the numerators by the denominators. Okay, so 1/8 of 16. What is 16 divided by 8? 2. So if you divided 16 into 8 groups, each group would be 2, okay? All right, 1/7 of 14 would also be 2. 14 divided by 7 is 2, and if you divided 14 into 7 groups, each group would have 2 in it. Okay, what about 7/8 of 16? 7/8 of 16. Okay, one way to do it would be, you say, how many, if you divide 16 into 8 groups, how many would each group have? 2. So if you had 7 groups of 2, what would you have? 14. Good. Okay, so let's see if that works out. Okay, what is 7 times 16? 7 times 16. Anybody? Okay, so if you have 7 times 6 would be 42. Carry the 4. 7 times 1, 7, plus 4, 11. So 112 divided by 8. 112 divided by 8, it's 14. Okay, so 14 would be your answer. Okay, so 7/8 of 16. Remember, you can use of for the multiplication. 7/8 of 16 would be 14. Okay, 6/7 of 14. 6/7 of 14. So if you divide 14 into 7 groups, each group would have 2. So how many would 6 of them have? 12. So 6/7 of 14 equals 12. Okay? All right. So again, you're going to be doing 492A odd for tomorrow's homework, or if you do it tonight. So really fast, let's talk about homework. There are some of you that are sending your homework in like super religiously, and every single time you send your homework in, on my homework page right here, I check your name off that you did it and that you sent it in. And your participation grade is going to be a huge part of your grade this time around, like a test grade. I'll add them all together, all of the ones that you handed in, add them all together, and then, or how many you were supposed to hand in, and then you'll get a grade for how many you handed in, okay? Not correct, how many you handed in. Okay, I'd like them to be correct, and I want you to try your hardest to make them correct, but please make sure you're sending your homework in, okay? And your test, your Chapter 7 test, I only got about half of them, okay? So those of you that sent them in, I just ended up counting it as a 100, okay? And those of you that have not sent them in, right now you have a 0. So if you choose to send them in, you will get a higher grade, but you will not get a 100. You will get some taken off for it being sent in late. So please send in your tests if you haven't. And if you did, and if you've been sending in your homework, I'm super proud of you, and I appreciate it, and your grade appreciates it too. All right, I will see you in a few minutes.